Saratoga Springs and some of these newer areas up kind of where there's notches. And there's also some in the southern part in some of the newer developments as well. This is the affordability comparison. These ratios are determined by taking the median home value and dividing it by the median income in the cities. So what this means is Saratoga Springs has a median home value that is about 4 times the median income of the annual income of someone living in Saratoga Springs. That is higher than Salt Lake County. It's also just below Utah County's average. But you are still much lower than places outside of the state, places like Portland, and much below San Francisco, which is probably the worst, to be honest. So this is some of the more important stuff. So this is HUD's determination of area median income. This is what the state has designated as the standard that is used when accounting for affordable housing. You'll see on the right, for 4 persons, $63,700 is 80% of the area median income. So that is the standard which has been used to calculate the affordable monthly housing allowance, which is $1,593, and that's including $300 in utilities. When we project that out to home prices, you'll see that at 4% mortgage, someone at the 80% area median income can afford $261,665 worth of home. The table below is just for reference to show you how these change, and obviously we've given some comparisons for other mortgage depending on interest rates and what citizens in Saratoga Springs might find themselves. Obviously, as interest rates go up, you can buy less house. So this is just comparison. So we use these two when looking at homes. Single-family residences, we use that max home price with a 4% mortgage. And when looking at rental units, we looked at the monthly allowance, that's $1,593. And when we put these together, you can see that there's total affordable units broken out by AMI with a total of 2,131. And Riverton's portion, when determining with the countywide proportion, that's 2,823 estimated households that would need affordable housing, which creates a shortage of about 692 units in Saratoga Springs. Oops. Okay, and then this last one is just a projection forward for the next 5 years. Keeping the proportion the same of how many households are in Saratoga Springs right now, and looking at what the deficit is. There on the far right, these proportions have been kept the same and projected forward, and so that gives you an idea of where Saratoga Springs will be in 2024 with their needs of affordable housing. One thing that I did want to touch on is that included in the report, the state requires the city to pick 3 strategies, at least 3 strategies listed off of their acceptable menu of strategies. The city has identified that they're already following strategy A, E, and G, which have been included. And so those have been included and can be reviewed within the report. I won't go over all the strategies, but that's a key part of meeting the state's requirements, and those have been included as well. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Director Stroud, is there anything you want to add to the presentation?
It's not. It's just, we're required to do this by state code. The recent legislative bill that came through is now a requirement. And cities have had to do it for some time, but there's some changes that the legislature made this last session. And so we're just open up to any questions or comments from the Planning Commission.
Okay, before we turn it over to the Planning Commission, this is a public hearing, and so we will open it up as such. If you are here for item number 4, the time is yours. If you would like to come to the podium and give your name and address for the record. Once again, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Is there anybody here who wants to comment on item number 4? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment and turn it over to the Planning Commission. Commissioner Steele, welcome back.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. You had Riverton on there, and I'm hoping that's a mistake.
That was a mistake. I apologize. We use these tables with multiple, and that's just an oversight. There's no confusion on what numbers were there.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. And then there's, on page 25, there's a thing that says that we have to meet, there's a certain percentage that we have to do to catch up for Utah County. And why are we talking about Utah County?
So there's a proportion, we could just look at Saratoga Springs within Saratoga Springs and just say, well, what's the income within the city? Are we providing the affordable housing there? But by looking at the county's proportion and kind of saying, well, because we have a much higher median income here, if we look at the county's proportion, we can say, well, what about those who are living outside of the city now, who aren't part of the city's demographics, who might want to move in? And are you providing affordable housing opportunity for them too? Because there may be more looking outside to move in who need the affordable housing as well. So that kind of covers the basis that you're doing the due diligence of not just looking within the city, but also providing affordable housing for everyone who might be looking to move in as well.
That doesn't seem right to me, but okay.
Sure, and it's also included there for, let me find the page, I apologize. So when you look at page 26, that is showing on the left there, the surplus and deficit, that is only taking into account Saratoga Springs. That is, the surplus right there is what would be considered just the cities or the deficit. So as you can see there, it shows that there's affordable housing, but we want to make sure we're covering all the bases as well and saying, so within Saratoga Springs, there's this. If we look at the countywide proportion, there's that as well. In the presentation, we focus on the countywide, but both have been presented in the report.
Okay. Do I understand that the feeling is that we already are meeting these standards? And that the three, for the three?
Well, of the three, we do have zones that we can have high density. We are now allowing accessory apartments in Beacon Point. And I think that may have to be addressed by the council. We need to go more citywide than that. And then we do have zoning for high density on what we're projecting to have the future transit corridor. The North Shore development does have some high density apartment type development along what will be the corridor. So we think we're meeting those three. And of course, development could come in down the road, which will add to that. But as far as meeting those three, we think we're doing that.
Are we able to ask for that in applications that come before the Planning Commission, that they allow ADUs?
It'd have to be in the zoning. It'd have to be, is it a community plan? Is it what we have to have some other provision in the code to allow those? Right now, the only provision in the code for ADUs is in Beacon Point.
Okay. And so my concern has always been that we don't allow them in the existing developments. And is that still going to be true?
Right, and that can certainly be one of the criteria. when that comes back. And I think we'll probably bring something back in the next quarter, changes, to see what ultimately what the council will do with that. But that certainly could be one of the options of, okay, if we're going to open the door up for more areas for ADUs, that could be one of the options only in new development.
Okay. Another thing, we meet another one of those criteria, and that is the, I've forgotten how it's put in there, but it's the single-room type development, or a single room. And since we allow for 4 unrelated people, that's another one that we can say that we meet. Just so if they question anything, we've got another one. And I'll just ask, did anybody see the article that came out on Fox News yesterday about co-living? Real estate trend has renters saving thousands. Did you happen to see that?
I did not, if you're asking me.
Did anybody else? It's quite interesting. What they've done is they've taken, and there may be 4 or 5 in a unit or in a single building, and they each have a bedroom, communal living. It's more like a college quad, really. And they've found that with no lease, that people who are in the process of looking for a job might rent, because the rent would be lower than if you rented a whole apartment. And then if you find a job and it's not within the area where you're living, you can leave without being tied to a lease. And so I would recommend, and if anybody's interested, it was yesterday, and it was in the business section online. And if anybody's interested, I do have it. So anyway, I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Steele. Commissioner Kilgore.
On page 32 of your report, you talk about how to implement some of the strategies. And on that page, number 1, modify zoning requirements. And so my comment is, I think relaxing so one of the recommendations with that is relaxing the zoning to reintroduce, quote, missing middle housing types. And I think it's a good idea, but I just wonder how practical it is, because developers tend to have, how practical is it if developers don't have necessarily the product? Because what they tend to do is neighborhoods tend to contain certain products that are aimed at more or less similar customers. So usually, like, we'll see applications come in and they'll say, this section of the community will be for single-family homes. And then over here will be apartments, and then over here will be townhomes or something like that. But you rarely, in a single-family home neighborhood, get something like a studio, or something that's geared maybe for a single person or a family just starting out. It's either homes, single-family homes, detached homes, or it's something else. And so that's where I just wonder, how do you get developers so that they will actually create products that are actually mixed, so that you do get that kind of, where you are able to reintroduce that missing middle. Just because right now, the way those applications come, it doesn't seem to be a practical benefit, even if we relax the zoning, because that's just not how the products are introduced to us. And I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg. The zoning has to be relaxed before the products come, or there have to be products before we can relax the zoning, because we're not really sure how to actually put that zone, or how to actually relax that zone. So that's something that I think it's an interesting idea, but I'm not really sure how we would approach that.
Okay.
Any ideas?
Yeah, you make some good points. That missing middle term, we worked with community planning and design. I might have to check with him, see if he can have some input on that, because that is a good point, and he knows more on that than I would.
Yeah, I
So
mean, as a
apologize.
homeowner myself in a neighborhood where the houses, they don't look like mine, but they are all same kind of families, I wouldn't mind if there were homes that also, as long as they met the local standards that catered to a small, just a couple or just a single person. But again, those products just don't come.
Sure.
When
It
a
is-
developer
yeah, I see.
presents it as an application, they're just not there. So I'm not sure if relaxing the zoning will necessarily create those products, because people tend to cluster anyway. So that's just the thing. Like I said, I think it's a good idea, but I'm just not sure how we could practically implement it as a planning commission type of body.
As far as, the mixing of housing types, yeah, most of your single-family subdivisions are all going to be, single-family homes, minimum. We do have the mixed residential zone, which we now have, North Shore is part of the mixed residential, which you can, do a cohesive development, master plan development with multiple housing types. Once that's done, if those apartments do go in at the future transit corridor, you're going to have apartments, we'll have townhomes, we'll have single-family homes. So we are starting that. It is happening in the city. I don't know if your point was, in the single-family, neighborhoods, can you relax zoning to, have a duplex next to a single-family or something like that? The neighborhood I live in, there are a couple of duplexes in some of the corner areas of my street area,
Okay.
which whatever zoning was in place in the city where I live allowed such use like that. Is that kind of what you're getting
Yeah, I mean,
at?
the recommendation is one option is to relax the zoning so that, and again, it's that term, the mixed.
Project is because that is what your zoning requires. So in order to provide an environment in which you can have a multitude of housing types within the same community, you need zoning that will actually allow for that. And David's correct. Your mixed residential zone goes part of the way there. I believe that there would potentially be a need to go a little bit further in terms of allowing for the full bandwidth of housing types that make up that missing middle category. Because even within the context of the mixed residential zone, you're seeing, and maybe it's at the behest of the developer that they're leaving particular building types out or housing types out, but you've got to have, because zoning precedes development, and zoning, for all intents and purposes, is DNA.
It would be a lot less expensive. But I don't
Absolutely.
know how that's going to work. So I won't be here, fellas. You know my concerns.
Commissioner Carn.
Thank you for the presentation. I had some questions on your data. So, and I didn't see it in there.
She can, tell you what she.
Project, I think. I think it'd be great for the city to have something like this. So this is an administrative action for us, for the planning commission. So for the record, does the applicant agree to comply with all conditions in the city staff and engineering reports?
Yes.
Okay. This is a question for staff. On page page this is. Under, I don't know what page this is. It's where it says vehicle storage. There's a line that says, staff finding complies. It appears the RV storage is a building and there is a wall around the site. Is that,
Oh,
What's
I
RV
apologize,
for?
that's next door.
okay. Wait, so, oh, you're saying that the RV storage next door has a wall, therefore it doesn't, it's not a problem for the, for
Right,
this
they don't have
project?
any RV storage on this site. That was next door.
Okay. That's it for me.
Okay, Commissioner Steele.
Yes, and I'm looking for the elevations. The color board looked like that there are 5 colors on the exterior. Is that 4 and 1 accent color? Is that how that works?
Well,